Okay, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're looking at this totally fascinating collision between an ancient craft and cutting-edge tech. For literally thousands of years, cannabis breeding has been this incredibly nuanced practice. It's part rigorous science and part deeply intuitive art. Growers have spent millennia selecting plants based entirely on what they could see, smell, and physically experience in the room. But guess what? A major disruption just walked into the greenhouse. Artificial intelligence has officially arrived. And it's setting up this really compelling conflict between the traditional artisan who relies on lived experience and the modern algorithm that runs on massive data sets. So that brings us to the big question we need to tackle today. Can AI actually breed better cannabis? There's a massive hype versus reality dynamic happening in cultivation circles right now. On one side, you've got folks who are convinced AI is going to completely revolutionize breeding, turning out superior cultivars faster than we've ever seen. On the flip side, there's a very real fear that computers might just replace traditional, passionate breeders altogether. The actual answer? Well, it's kind of both yes and no. AI has enormous potential, but as we're going to see, it's also got some profound limitations. All right, Section 1, the art of breeding. Thousands of years of human intuition. To really grasp what AI is up against, we first have to establish the baseline of what traditional cannabis breeders actually do. A master breeder is so much more than someone just dusting pollen from one plant to another. It's a lifelong dedication. Good breeders spend years, sometimes decades, evaluating plants across entirely different environments, relying heavily on this almost instinctual understanding of the plant. They're juggling a crazy volume of specific, complex traits. We're talking growth structure and internodal spacing, literally how the plant physically supports itself. They're looking for disease resistance, flower morphology, and of course, those intricate cannabinoid and terpene profiles. And they're tracking yield potential and how the harvest holds up later. A human breeder is evaluating all of these variables simultaneously in their head every single time they walk into a grow room. And this is where things get really interesting, because a breeder's toolkit basically splits into two camps. On one hand, you've got the quantifiable data, the hard science, your lab reports, measured yield potential, tracked growth rates. But on the other hand, you have intuitive observations. So many vital traits are incredibly tough to quantify. A great breeder can walk through a field and just instantly recognize a plant worth keeping because they pick up on a subtle aroma. They see unmeasured vigor or a growth pattern that just doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. Historically, it is this exact blend of science and human intuition that's given us the world's most legendary cultivars. Moving on to Section 2, where algorithms excel, the power of processing massive data. Look, if you take the emotion and the craft out of it, modern cannabis breeding is essentially an exercise in generating enormous amounts of information. And if there is one thing machine learning systems absolutely excel at, it's processing massive, complex data sets to find hidden patterns. Millions, that's the keyword here. Machine learning systems can analyze millions of individual data points in a fraction of the time it would take a human. A human brain, no matter how brilliant or experienced, simply cannot process that volume of information simultaneously without missing something. The AI doesn't get tired, it doesn't get distracted, and it can spot microscopic relationships in the data that a human would completely overlook. Just to give you a sense of scale here, a single AI system might be actively tracking thousands of individual plants, monitoring hundreds of specific traits for every single one. It's cross-referencing all of that with constantly shifting environmental conditions, millions of genomic markers, and endless lab analyses. It might discover that some highly specific combination of genetic markers is secretly tied to increased terpene production, or it might flag genetic bottlenecks way before they ever physically manifest in the crop. Section 3, Genomic Selection and Phenotyping. Seeing the future in a seed. Normally, you'd have to grow thousands of plants to full maturity just to evaluate them, right? It's a massive drain on time, labor, and space. But with genomic selection, the AI analyzes DNA samples against huge genetic databases. It can predict THC and CBD potential, flowering time, and yield when the plant is literally just a tiny seedling. That third step is the absolute game changer. Breeders can eliminate the deads immediately and pour all their water, light, and resources into only the most promising individuals. Then you throw automated phenotyping into the mix. Phenotyping is basically just measuring a plant's physical characteristics. Back in the day, breeders did this manually with clipboards and rulers. Today, we're talking automated systems using high-res cameras, environmental sensors, and AI to measure canopy density, color changes, and leaf area. And get this, these systems can actually identify nutrient deficiencies or stress responses before the symptoms even become visible to the human eye. So instead of manually evaluating hundreds of plants, a breeder can perfectly evaluate thousands. So how does this actually change the fundamental task of predicting crosses? The traditional method relies pretty heavily on educated guesses and experience. It's complex, it's slow, and it involves a whole lot of trial and error. The AI method flips the script. It trains machine learning models on massive sets of historical breeding data. It's not just guessing blindly, it's estimating the mathematical probability of success for specific parent combinations. Now, genetics are messy and complex, so it's not a guarantee, but it drastically improves your odds and stops you from wasting time on dead-end genetic combos. Which brings us to Section 4, the limits of AI, the unquantifiable art. All right, let's pump the brakes for a second, because this is exactly where the hype surrounding AI often overshoots reality. You see, an AI is only as good as the data you feed it. If the data is biased or incomplete, the predictions are useless. But more importantly, cannabis presents some incredibly unique challenges because its highest value traits are entirely subjective. Think about it. How on earth do you teach a computer to recognize a truly unique terpene experience? AI can tell you the exact percentage of marcin or limonene in a flower, sure, but it cannot walk into a room, squeeze a bud, take a deep breath, and understand how those compounds blend to create an experience that captivates the consumer. Smell and taste, those are profoundly human experiences. Or consider this one, how you measure exceptional bag appeal or the emotional impact of a cultivator. An algorithm can't scroll through a dispensary menu and understand what consumers are craving right now. It doesn't appreciate the aesthetic beauty of a perfectly cured flower or the nostalgia a certain aroma might bring up. These are the exact factors that actually determine commercial success in the real world, and algorithms are completely blind to them. Picture this scenario. An AI system flags a plant as the absolute holy grail. It's got perfect laboratory numbers, ideal genetic markers for disease resistance, massively high predicted yield. Mathematically, it is flawless. Yet, a human breeder might walk up to that perfectly engineered plant, take one smell, find the aroma totally boring, and reject it on the spot. Pure statistics just cannot account for a flat, uninspiring sensory profile. Section 5, the future of cultivation. Synergy, not replacement. So the answer really isn't a battle between man and machine. The future of breeding isn't about AI replacing humans. It's about synergy. It's about AI working directly alongside passionate growers. Imagine a collaborative workflow. The AI does the heavy lifting, crunching millions of lines of genomic data. Sensors monitor plant health 24/7. Machine learning predicts the outcomes and narrows down the field. But crucially, at the very end of this highly optimized funnel, the human breeder steps in. The human makes that final artistic call. The artisan relies on their intuition to make the ultimate selection from a perfectly curated pool of candidates. To really put this into perspective, don't think of AI as an artificial brain replacing yours. Think of it simply as a tool. Just like the microscope revolutionized biology or how GPS completely transformed modern agriculture, artificial intelligence is just the next revolutionary tool in the farming evolution. It's a utility that's going to help us preserve genetic diversity, map out the complex relationships between environments and terpenes, and dramatically accelerate our progress. I absolutely love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. AI can identify patterns, humans create vision. So many of the greatest breakthroughs in cannabis genetics only happened because a breeder noticed something weird, a strange mutation or an unexpected smell, and decided to follow their curiosity. That kind of visionary creativity, that willingness to investigate an outlier that a computer would just discard as a statistical error, you literally cannot automate that. At the end of the day, I don't care how advanced our processors get or how huge our genomic databases become, artificial intelligence is never going to replicate the lived experience of a master grower. The heart of breeding is going to stay exactly what it has always been. It's driven by passionate growers, patient observation, relentless curiosity, and a really deep, respectful understanding of the plant itself. AI can absolutely help breed better cannabis, for sure, but it will never replace the artisan. Which leaves us with a pretty exciting final thought to ponder. The future doesn't belong to machines, and it certainly doesn't belong to humans who refuse to adapt. It belongs to the people who embrace both. So ask yourself, as we watch this industry evolve at lightning speed, how will the visionary breeders of tomorrow use artificial intelligence to elevate their craft and become even better? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep your curiosity growing.